Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Divorce Happens, the podcast where we support you before, during, and after divorce with everything you need: education, inspiration, a little bit of laughter, because as we know, divorce happens and then you start fresh. And we're here with one of our awesome Fresh Starts experts, Mark Slade. Mark, can you tell us what you do?
Sure. Well, I work in real estate, so I help people with their real estate needs, whether it's buying or selling, sometimes both. And when it comes to divorce, that can be even more exponential in terms of trying to help everyone to get out of the lives that they're currently in, that they already decided they want to get out of, and get into a life and a living scenario that works best for them.
Absolutely. So the house process, I will say, is very, very common when you go through a divorce, whether it's a refinance, whether you're selling, whether you're buying. So I would love to talk about the importance. We talk a lot about at Fresh Starts. One of the reasons we built Fresh Starts was because you do have a team of people that support you through not just divorce, but any big life change, right? And realtors really need to be part of that team. So why should somebody work with a realtor during their divorce, and not even necessarily, Mark, if they're thinking of buying or selling right away, but having somebody on the team from the get go?
Well, first, I guess I should say that I am part of the tribe in this case. I had been married previously twice, and one was to my freshman college sweetheart, and we are still great friends
Yeah,
and share an older son together. My second wife, we're not such good friends. So
it
I've had
happens.
both extremes.
Yep.
So that puts me in a position of being very experienced going through this process.
Mm,
And makes me a better advocate for you, a better sounding board for you. And ironically, I mean, because people know my second divorce made the New York Times, believe it or not, the people actually seek me out sometimes to get advice. And I'm more than
mm.
happy to give you advice. That's my job, whether it's real estate or in this case, it's helping people get through the process. And, I always have to say there was definitely light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
You may not feel like it now, but but when you get there and you have arrived at your destination, you're going to pull that train, whistle and be
Yep.
quite happy with where you are. And it took me two or three tries, I should say, to get where I'm at today, and I couldn't be happier um,
Oh, love
in
it.
my personal life because my business partner is also my fiance.
Love that. We love that. We
Yeah,
always love a little fresh start story, Mark. So, okay, so you've been through it, so you
yep.
understand, which is one of our favorite things here. So, okay, if I'm listening to this, I'm considering divorce. Maybe I am a mom. I have a couple kids. Why should they call you up, Mark, and let you know that they're going through a divorce and get you on their team today?
Well, because most often people can't sustain what's going to have to be their new living environments.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're divorcing, there are ways to slice it and dice it, but there's at least one other domicile. If not,
Hmm.
sometimes you sell the primary that you're in now, and there are two new, fresh places to live. And there are a lot of considerations that are not just real estate related, which is my primary focus, but also divorce related. My second wife actually tried to move to Manhattan to be with her second lover,
Hmm.
while we were still married and legally married. And I found out that you can't leave the state of New Jersey if you
No.
have joint custody. So, I mean,
Oh.
there are things that you may not know because you haven't addressed them as of yet. And so we can be very helpful. I mean, the interesting thing about being in real estate is because of all the different kinds of experiences that we encounter, and we've closed over 800 transactions on our team. I'm not saying we've learned everything because I still find something new that's like, wow, get
Yeah, I'm
surprised
sure.
by it. But the reality is we've experienced an awful lot and therefore can share a lot of advice. And like I said earlier, advice of going through a divorce. I have lots of advice that I would love to give people that are
Yeah.
going through this, so I can, hopefully be their advocate and help them get through what is a very stressful experience. And real estate can also be stressful, and that's why you want an
Yeah.
experienced agent to help you. Because I can't even imagine having the bucket of real estate stress and the divorce stress at the same time without having people there, even if they just listen to you. I mean,
Yeah.
because being by yourself and have to ruminate through all of the things that are going on and happening to you, that's tough. So it's
Yeah.
good to have someone who's on your side. Um, and has gone through it so they can give you and share experience. When you look for a handyman, you don't just indiscriminately throw a dart at a telephone book, not that we
Yeah.
have those anymore.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're going to ask people to get referrals.
Yeah.
Who do you know? And it's the same thing in this particular case. We can refer people to, even to divorce attorneys,
Yep.
people that are involved in the process, to make sure that they're getting the best advice so that way we can hopefully achieve the best outcome for
Yep.
everyone. and
Yep.
and that's what's most important, uh, is to make sure that we try to do what we can to ease some of the stress and help you get to where you need to go, where you want to
Yeah.
go, and where you've
Yeah.
decided to go. I mean, I tell people my marketing in real estate is not about convincing you to sell your house. It's helping you sell your house if that's what you've chosen to do. You've contacted me to do it, or helping you buy a house because you contacted me. But I don't necessarily
Right.
go out there and try to say, "Hey, are you looking to sell your house?" No. I'm more
Yeah.
of a let people come to me, not because I have an ego, but because I'm not. I like to handle people that seek me out based on all the
Yeah.
marketing that I do.
Yeah. Yeah. So if somebody's listening to this and maybe they're going through a divorce and their spouse, soon to be ex-spouse says, "Well, we don't need a realtor. We'll just, we'll sell by owner, right? We'll save the money." A lot of so much a divorce process is about trying to save money, right? So what would you say to those people? Because I know the answer is you absolutely need a realtor, right?
Well,
But what
there are
would
a couple.
you
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm so sorry. Finish. Go ahead,
No.
Olivia. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
no, what would you say? I want to hear what your response would
Well, I
be.
mean, a lot of people think maybe selling for sale by owner (FSBO) is a logical choice to save money. Statistically, it hurts you more than it gains you.
Mhm.
First off, most of the time, you're still going to end up having to pay a buyer agent fee.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're already paying commission. Okay, you don't have the experience to know how to make sure the property is marketed properly. I just looked at a listing for a client today. I could tell the pictures were taken by somebody who doesn't know how to take pictures.
Mm,
They were all dark. They were all fisheye. I mean,
yeah.
and I feel like calling up that seller and saying, "Have you looked at your pictures compared to other people?"
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
there's, in addition to the marketing, there's all the other nuances of marketing. I teach social media to realtors, so I know how to
Mm,
pound it out there on social media, which is where a lot of the activity is now shifted.
yeah.
But then it's the other elements. What do you do when you get home inspection report? When I
Mhm.
started in the business 15 plus years ago, home inspection report was 12 to 25 pages. The
Yeah.
average home inspection report is over 100 pages right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say mine was like a book when I
Yep.
sold my
Yep.
house. Yeah.
And I always joke with people on both sides of the equation. Go to the local drugstore, get your Visine, because there's so much red ink drop down menu, cover your ass, pardon my French, cover
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
derriere
Yeah.
language,
Yeah.
that scares the bejesus out of people.
Yeah.
Okay. And or makes them angry and infuriates them. And I get it. So it's very important that you have guidance so you can frame where these requests are coming from. And even when
Mm,
you have a deal and someone says it's as is, I am shocked by how many times a buyer
yeah.
still puts forth requests that
Yeah.
contradict what they put in the contract that was agreed
Yeah.
to, or their
Yeah.
attorney does so. I mean, when we work with sellers, we actually have guidelines that we often produce, and it basically says that in section 43 is the additional comment section where people put in, I'm agreeing to my chimney and flue being as is, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera. And we tell people that please be aware if your attorney changes this, that is
Yeah.
grounds for immediate termination.
Mm.
Now,
Mm.
we just want to at least
Interesting.
let people know that's why
Right.
your offer was accepted.
Right.
So there are a lot of things that add to the stress in a real estate transaction that we're there to be your buffer, your I hate to say guiding light, but yeah,
Yeah.
because we want to get you to the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep.
And so, because there are so many stress points that you may not be aware of, you think it's easy
Yeah.
to throw it on the internet,
Yeah.
but throwing spaghetti at a wall to see what sticks, that only works for spaghetti. That
Yeah.
doesn't work in
It's
a real
true.
estate transaction because you actually have to get it, get the contract, get through attorney review, get through the home inspection process. And,
Yeah.
once again, when I first started, a home inspection was one guy. He might have brought somebody in to do termite testing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a radon test. Nowadays, in this area of New Jersey, there is, I call them colonoscopies. There's the chimney colonoscopy where they
Yep.
send the camera up
Yeah.
the chimney flue. There is the sewer line colonoscopy, more aptly called the colonoscopy, when you're
Mhm.
sending the camera down the sewer line
Yeah.
to make sure there are no breakage and root intrusions. There are underground storage tank, oil tank, just magnetic tests. There are so many different additional tests, and now there are people doing mold tests. They're doing lead paint tests. They're doing lead dust
Yeah.
tests.
Wow.
The list goes on and on and on. And a home inspection that used to be a $500 process is now $2,500.
Yes, it
As
is.
much
Yeah.
as if you're
Yeah.
adding all those extra tests. And then how do you
Yeah.
deal with that?
Right.
How do you deal with what the report? The reports are always going to find something.
Yeah.
Okay,
Always.
even if it's like my favorite is the mold test that says elevated levels of this type of bacteria in the air, however, not unlike the exterior air samples. So, okay, what am
Yeah.
I supposed to
Yeah.
do with that? I
Yeah.
mean,
I love it.
okay,
Yeah.
so I shouldn't go outside and I shouldn't live in my house. I mean, what do I do?
Yeah. I
So,
love that, Mark. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just there's a lot that you don't know, which is why having an experienced realtor is a smart move.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in our case, I can assure you that the guidance we give helps you get the most for your money, for your house,
Yeah. Yeah.
because there are a lot of things that people they focus on the wrong things. Oh, I
Yeah.
had a client that just had a boiler, and another agent told him to replace his boiler because it was leaking, and it was almost $20,000. Okay, I said you're not making money with this. You
Mhm.
should have saved that money for other cosmetic things
Right.
that people do pay
Yep.
money for, and then you
Yep.
work out the credit on the back end. But this is the thing:
Yep.
people don't know,
Right.
so
There's a lot
they
of
make
options.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the thing. I just
Yeah.
I don't want to go on too long on that, but I do
No,
think
I think
there's
it's super helpful. Yeah.
thank you. It's just, but it's just that you don't know it. It's not your expertise. If you're a doctor, you know what your specialty
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
The good thing
Mhm.
about realtors, our specialty is pretty much anything that encompasses the world of real estate, from rentals
Right.
to listings to buying, and like I
Right.
said, doing both at the same time, timing that out so it's most convenient. And the number one question is, well, I'm looking to buy and I'm looking to sell at the same time. How does that work? Well, we make every effort to make sure they coincide. So you have a morning closing on your sale and an afternoon closing on your
And it's
purchase.
it's it never works out the way that you want it to, by the way, right? It's there was always
Well, I
something
mean,
that
there's always something. Yes, we tell people that there are caveats in real
Yeah.
estate. Even though when you have a contract date, that may not be the day you close.
Yep.
But the reality is we do everything we can to try to get there and work with everyone involved to make sure we at least
Yeah.
understand where the
Yeah.
timeline is going. Because there's nothing worse than when a timeline gets obliterated and you're left
No. And you need your
floundering. Well,
team.
I had to
Yeah.
cancel my movers. I had to do this. I had to
Oh
do
my
that.
gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you do. You need that team. One more question before I let you explain a little bit more about what you do, but also let's not forget that having a realtor as the middleman when you are not in a great maybe relationship with the person you're divorcing is really important.
Well, it's even more advantageous when you work with our team. Okay. Yes, to your point, having a realtor as a buffer is good. The
Yeah.
challenge can often be that who is that realtor most aligning with? That realtor needs to stay neutral to both
Yeah.
parties
Right.
because
Right.
legally they have a fiduciary responsibility to both. And sometimes it doesn't feel that way. In our case, my business partner, Mary, who's also my fiance, there are two of us. And so, depending on how the relationship seems to coincide and work with our
Mm,
sellers, okay, it gives us a chance to
right.
align to make them most comfortable. So it can either be female to male, so on and so forth,
Mhm. Mhm.
to try to give them an idea that
Yeah.
they have extra representation, extra hands on deck, extra availability because sometimes your agent isn't always
Oh yeah.
immediately available and you have an immediate urgent pressing question. So it's great that you get my voicemail that says call Mary at her phone number. You get her
Yeah.
voicemail that says call Mark at my phone number.
Yep.
It's just we do what we can to make sure that we really show our allegiance is to both sellers when there are obviously two people involved, and that they feel that they're being listened to,
Mm.
and that we are their advocate and we're looking to
Mm.
help them as much as possible.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, yes, having an experienced realtor, especially when it's gone through divorce, not
Yeah.
just divorce in real estate transactions, which we've done multiple times, but also divorce in terms of personal experience, it's really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it
I
does.
mean, no matter who you choose, you should choose somebody that has both of those, if at all possible,
Yeah.
because it'll make sure their advice is coming from knowledge that actually is the same set of circumstances that you're experiencing.
Yeah, it's so important. Okay, so Mark, tell us, where do you work? Where do you practice? And how can people get in touch with you? And anything else you'd like to share about the work that you do?
Sure. Thank you, Olivia. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
So, obviously, when you have a license in New Jersey, it's good for the entire state of New Jersey. We actually have done business in 51 different municipalities in the state,
Wow.
down to the Princeton area, as far out as Western New Jersey. You can step out one of our clients' backyards into Pennsylvania.
Mm.
We've been up in Passaic County, dealing with North Haledon and Haledon. But our core business is Essex, Union, and Morris counties.
Mhm.
My office is in downtown Maplewood, where I'm also a resident. And what I can tell you is that we figured out how to get it done. So it's all about getting the results, and that is what our focus is in terms of how we practice real estate. And when it comes to divorce, if I can toot my own horn, having
Please.
been a two-time club member,
Yeah.
I've also written a book on best-selling options in divorce, which is available to anyone that has interest. We'll get a copy of that over to them and help ease
Amazing.
their minds. It's an easy read, but once again, light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, you may not see it now because of all the stress that's involved, but let me just tell you, when you finally find that person that gets you, respects you, um, it's amazing. It's truly amazing. And so it's a shame that you're in a relationship now. Because obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, clearly you're not in the best type of relationship.
Mhm.
Um, but I just can tell you that once you get through it, you'll be able to breathe a huge sigh of relief. And then we hope that once you clear that through, all that debris, as I'll call it, that
Mhm.
you get to a place where you're much happier with your life. And, sometimes the idea of one spouse staying in the house, it's not necessarily good because that house has the emotional attachments to the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah, I
Um,
did that. Yeah, that's
Having a
hard.
clear break is really what we it's really best for everybody involved.
Yeah.
And it's especially when you have kids involved as well. It's a lot of people like the idea of saying, well, let's keep the house, and maybe the spouses will rotate out of the house. Yes, that sounds good on the one hand for the
Mm.
kids, and it can work if you have a real mutual understanding. If it's a real
Yeah.
amicable divorce, then maybe
Yeah.
that can work. But most of the time, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then it adds stress, and all that kind of good stuff. So, and
Yeah.
Olivia, so you went through it as well. So you know,
Oh, I know. Yeah, I
yeah,
stayed in the marital residence and it was tough. And it was tough to, I always say it's hard to heal in the space that you were hurt, right? And so,
yes,
it really is tough. And ended up selling about 3 years later, which I had wonderful realtors here on Long Island that really helped me. And their big advice to me was, at the time, my sons and I were going to move back into my parents' house because I didn't know what I wanted to do yet
right.
next. So they said, move out first. Let's redo the inside of the house, and you can get a lot more money when the house is redone inside. And I did. And so and I would never have done that without their advice. And so I'm very grateful for that. And we had 80 showings on the house, which was
That's awesome.
wild. Yeah. So, that's what selling that house is what funded the company,
Yeah.
so, it's really cool. But I just appreciate all of those wise words. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what is the best way to do that, Mark?
So my cell phone is 917-797-5059. I practically sleep with it. Texting me is your best way to at least first approach me. And I'm 24/7, 365. So, I should be able to get back to you unless you're getting me, in the wee hours of the morning because you couldn't sleep. I might be sleeping. So
Yeah.
you'll have to wait until I get up. But the reality is that's the best method. My email is sladehomes at gmail. So my last name,
Mhm.
SLADEHOMES at Gmail. That's another way of getting a hold of me. It's not as efficient as texting is. Um, and what I can tell you is, if you do have to sell your home, I mean, our success with our listing clients has been so paramount that it actually led to a system that my partner Mary created and then I embellished
Mm,
upon. And it's called Smart Results. The RE is hyphenated, is italicized, and then a
mhm.
dash because of real estate. And it's up for copyright and trademark
Nice.
as well. So, obviously, we'd like to think we know what we're doing. We'd
Yeah, it
love
sounds
to help you. And even if we don't end up actually being hired, I still am available to you for advice of any kind. We have a list of 12 pages long of affiliates. And to your
Mm,
point, Olivia, about doing things that get the house sold for the most money, there are a lot of things that a seller doesn't think that can make a
yeah,
huge difference. Sometimes you have those 1980s oak cabinets, they're good for you. That's not what today's buyers want. So we don't say replace all your cabinets. We say let's get them painted and let's
that's what
just
I
get the
did.
doors
That's
painted, not
exactly what
the
I did.
inside
Yep,
boxes to save
yep,
money.
yep,
Unfortunately, real estate for the purchaser is about status, it's about appearance. They're looking at HGTV, they're looking at all these
yeah,
TV shows where everything's being renovated, and
yep,
they're like flies to the flame when it comes to a beautifully renovated looking house. But the trick is, you don't have to do everything top of the nines
yeah,
to overspend, because then you will lose money. It's really about getting the
yeah,
right kind of guidance to present the house in the best possible light for
totally.
today's buyers. So that way you will get the most money you possibly can, that the market will give you for the house at that time.
That's great advice, Mark. And it's so clear how passionate you are about this. And so, obviously, all of Mark's information will be in the show notes. And as always, you can find Mark over at Fresh Starts Registry and the Expert Guide, which we love having him over at Fresh Starts. Mark, thank you so much for being here. This was like invaluable information. So I hope that
Olivia, it was an
many
honor and a
people,
pleasure,
yeah,
and
of
I
course.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.